My name is Jason. And I guess I've always been too naive when it comes to family. Even now, as I type this, I'm not entirely sure I'm ready to tell the world what happened on that damn Thanksgiving. But I need to spill it out or I'll just go crazy. You know, growing up, I always thought my family was, well, normal. Like those old sitcoms, troubled but loving. My parents worked hard to provide for my sister Emily and me. She's 4 years older than me, and as a kid, I looked up to her as a star, an unattainable ideal. Maybe that was my first mistake. Our paths diverged after school. I went to technical college, then got a job in an IT company, and then gradually rose to senior developer. Now I have my own consulting firm, which deals with network security. I am not a millionaire, but let's just say that I am very comfortable financially. Emily took a different path. She dropped out of college in her sophomore year when she got pregnant by her boyfriend, Rick. Rick. I could talk about him for hours. I'll just say that he never held a job for more than a few months, but he always found something to spend his money on: a new guitar, a bike, collector's cards. Emily always defended him. He's just looking for his calling, he's a creative person, you don't understand him like I do. Maybe. But I understood that their family with 2 children, my nephews Lucas and Zoe, was constantly short of money. Everything changed 7 years ago. Our father died of a heart attack, and my mother, unable to bear the loss, passed away 6 months later, a cancer she kept from us, not wanting to bother us. Before she died, my mom called me to her hospital bed. "Jason, you know I've always been proud of you," she said then, holding my hand. Her fingers were so fragile. "You're the only one of us who's really accomplished anything. Emily, she's always been difficult. Her family's in a tough spot." I nodded. We all knew that Emily and Rick were barely making ends meet. "Your father and I. We left you everything. The house, the savings, the insurance. It's all in the will. But Mom, Emily." She squeezed my hand. "We discussed it with your father before he died. Emily doesn't know how to handle money, and Rick even less so. They'll just blow it all, and then what? We trust you to make the right decision." I promised her I'd take care of my sister and nephews. Mom smiled weakly, and something in her eyes told me she knew I'd say that. After the funeral, while sorting through my parents' files, I discovered that their house was mortgaged, bills were not being paid regularly, and debts were mounting. Years of caring for an ailing wife had drained my father's financial resources. But the insurance was quite substantial, and now it belonged to me. At the time, Emily and her family were renting a small house in a not-so-wealthy neighborhood. Lucas was 9, and Zoe was 7. One day, when I arrived at their house for dinner, I saw a hole in the ceiling of their kitchen, where water was dripping. "It's been like this for 2 months now," Rick complained. "The landlord says he'll fix it, but he keeps putting it off." That night, I made a decision. I paid off the mortgage on my parents' house and suggested that Emily and her family move there. Our family home in suburban Portland was much better than their rented place: 4 bedrooms, a big backyard, a good school district. "We can't take it, Jay," Emily said, though I could see her eyes light up. "We won't be able to afford a mortgage like that." "No mortgage," I replied. "I paid it off. You'll only have to pay for utilities and property tax." Rick tensed. "We don't need charity." I sighed. His pride had always been an issue. "This isn't a charity. It's our family home. I don't need it, I have my own apartment in the city. Oh, and Mom would want kids to grow up in this house." After much persuasion, they agreed. We arranged it so that they would move in as tenants and I would remain the owner. Emily promised that she would pay me a token rent when their financial situation improved. But their situation wasn't getting any better. Rick changed jobs, and Emily took odd part-time jobs. They kept asking for an extension on the rent, and then they stopped mentioning it altogether. A year later, I started getting calls from the utility company about unpaid bills. First for water, then for electricity. I could make them move out. I could have made a scene. But every time I came and saw my nephews, I couldn't. Lucas was a smart boy, always with a book. Zoe painted beautiful pictures. They deserved stability, a proper home, and a good school. And so I started quietly paying the bills without telling Emily and Rick. "It's temporary," I convinced myself. "Until they get back on their feet." Years went by. I kept paying. Mortgage, utilities, property taxes. When the roof started leaking, I paid for the repairs. When the old boiler broke in the middle of winter, I bought a new one. When Lucas and Zoe went to high school, I anonymously paid for their field trips, sports equipment, and textbooks. Emily and Rick didn't know anything. Or so I thought. I had asked the company to send bills to my address, and officially, the house was jointly owned, so as not to raise questions from the neighbors or the school. Gradually, I began to notice that I was being invited to fewer and fewer family events. At first, it was small things. Emily forgot to invite me to Zoe's school concert or Lucas's baseball game. Then I'd find out about birthdays ex post facto, from social media. Sorry, it was spontaneous. We thought you were busy. Next time for sure. I tried not to pay much attention to it. I had my own life, a good job, and friends. I dated different women, but the relationships never went very far. Perhaps because a large part of my income went to support my sister's family. 3 years ago, I noticed a strange coldness on the part of my nephews. Lucas was already 16, Zoe 14. They used to be always happy to see me, telling me about their successes and problems. But now they barely said hello and quickly disappeared into their rooms when I came over. One day, I overheard Lucas saying on the phone, "Yeah, the loser uncle's here again. Always meddling in our lives." It hurt. Deeply. I didn't understand why they treated me that way. What had I done wrong? My relationship with Emily was getting strained, too. She canceled our appointments at the last minute. She wouldn't return our calls. And when we did see each other, the conversation didn't go well. Last year at Christmas, I arrived with gifts, and Emily met me at the door. "Oh, Jason, we weren't expecting you today." Behind her back, I saw a decorated Christmas tree, heard laughter and music. There was a party going on there that I hadn't been invited to. I thought we had an agreement. I began. "Really? I must have forgotten. We're having a few friends over today. Maybe another time?" I went home with a trunk full of presents and spent Christmas alone for the first time in years. Then I began to wonder if it made sense to keep helping people who seemed to despise me. But I kept paying. Maybe out of stubbornness. Maybe because of a promise I made to my mom. Or maybe because of a lingering hope that things could still work out. And then came this Thanksgiving. And everything changed. The invitation came unexpectedly, a call from Emily a week before the holiday. "Jay, we want you to come to our house for Thanksgiving." Her voice sounded strangely strained. "The whole family will be here. There's going to be an important conversation." A conversation? About what? "Just show up, okay? 4 o'clock. That call struck me as odd. Especially after months of silence. But I agreed. After all, it was Thanksgiving, a family holiday. Maybe Emily had decided to patch things up. In the week before the party, I had a vague uneasiness. Something in Emily's voice. I couldn't pinpoint what it was, but my gut told me that something bad was brewing. So I did something I probably should have done a long time ago. I put together a folder. It contained copies of all the documents that proved I owned the house. Billing statements showing that I'd paid all my utilities for the past 7 years. Receipts for repairs and maintenance. Tax returns. Everything. I don't even know why I took that folder with me to dinner. I guess I knew it was coming. Thanksgiving morning, I stood in front of the mirror for a long time deciding what to wear. Stupid, right? As if the right shirt would make a difference. I ended up choosing the blue sweater my mom had given me for the last Christmas before she died. With the silly hope that it would somehow help. I remember every detail of that day. The foggy November sky. The smell of wet leaves. How I stopped buying a nice bottle of wine, even though I usually brought whiskey, because Rick preferred hard liquor. But that day, I wanted something more noble. As I pulled up to the house, a house that still belonged to me, though almost no one knew it, I saw a lot of unfamiliar cars. Parking on the street, I sat in the car for a few minutes, gathering my wits. And then I took a folder, a bottle of wine, took a deep breath, and walked toward what, as it turned out, had been cooking behind my back for a long time. I rang the doorbell of the house I grew up in. I realized my hands were shaking. Emily opened the door. She was wearing a new dress I hadn't seen before, and more makeup than usual. She gave me a strained smile. "Jason, you came." As if it was a surprise, even though she'd invited me herself. "Happy Thanksgiving," I said, handing her the bottle of wine. "I got Cabernet, your favorite." She glanced at the bottle. "Oh, thank you. Come on in, everyone's already here." All turned out to be a group of about 15 people. I didn't know most of them. There was Aunt Martha and Uncle Paul on my father's side, A few neighbors I vaguely remembered, a couple of Rick's coworkers, Rick's parents, and of course, my nephews, Lucas and Zoe, now almost grown. Uncle Jason, Zoe muttered, not looking up from the phone. Lucas just nodded. No one got up to greet me. No one offered a drink or an appetizer. I stood in the middle of the living room with the folder in my hands, feeling like a ghost at my own wake. Have a seat. Emily pointed to the only available seat, a chair in the corner, separate from the others. We were just about to sit down at the table. There was a strange tension at the table. Everyone was talking in muffled voices, avoiding looking in my direction. I noticed Rick's mother whispering something to Aunt Martha, and they both looked at me with obvious disapproval. So, what's new with everyone? I tried to start a conversation. There was an awkward silence. Then Rick coughed. I have a new job. I'm the manager at Frank's car dealership now. Congratulations, I said sincerely. That's great news. Yes, finally, someone in this family can provide a decent living, Rick's mother added, looking at me meaningfully. What did that mean? I shifted my gaze to Emily, but she avoided my gaze. Dinner continued in the same vein. Everyone discussed their news, their holiday plans, but somehow I was always left out of the conversation. When I asked Lucas about college, he gave me one-word answers. When I asked Zoe about her progress in art, she shrugged. I don't do that anymore. I felt like I was in an alternate reality. These people, my family, acted as if I were a stranger who had wandered into their party. After the main course, when everyone had finished their turkey and pumpkin pie, Emily suddenly stood up and tapped her fork on her glass. Everyone fell silent. Thank you all for coming today, she began with a rehearsed smile. Thanksgiving is a time to appreciate our family. Real family. She paused and looked directly at me. Something cold slid down my spine. In recent years, we've talked a lot about what it means to be a family. About loyalty, support, and mutual respect. And how some people don't live up to those values. The room became very quiet. I could hear the clock on the wall, the same clock my mother had hung up 30 years ago. Jason. Emily turned to me, and her voice grew harsher. We're all here to tell you something important. I felt my heart start to pound. The folder in my lap suddenly felt very heavy. We took a family vote. Emily continued, looking around the gathering. It's a unanimous decision. You are no longer a part of this family. I blinked. Once. Another. Trying to make sense of her words. What? You heard me. We no longer consider you a member of the Taylor family. You are not invited to future family events. Do not call us. Do not come here. You no longer exist for us. I looked around, expecting someone to object, to say it was a joke. But instead, people started applauding. Really applauding, like at a theater performance. Bravo, Emily! Exclaimed Aunt Martha. It's about time. Rick muttered. Even Lucas and Zoe clapped, with smiles on their faces. I sat stunned, while these people, my relatives, people I had known all my life, applauded my banishment. My thoughts were racing. What had I done? Why do they all hate me? What had happened? And then I felt a strange calmness. A clarity I hadn't felt in a long time. I laughed quietly. Not hysterically, but with a kind of detached irony. The applause died down. Everyone stared at me. What's so funny? Emily asked sharply. I shook my head. Just thinking how funny it turned out. You took a vote then? And decided I'm no longer a member of the family? That's right. Emily nodded proudly. I grinned again. Then I guess you won't be needing this, then. And I put the folder on the table. Emily cast a careless glance at the folder. What is it? Open and look. She reluctantly took the folder and opened it. I watched her face change from annoyance to confusion, then to shock, and finally to horror. It can't be true, she whispered, thumbing through the papers. What is it? Rick asked, trying to peek over her shoulder. The house. Emily squeezed out. It belongs to Jason. Always belong. There was dead silence in the room. And judging by these bills, she continued in a shaky voice. He's been paying all the utilities since we've lived here. Electricity. Water. Taxes. Rick snatched the folder from her hands. This is some kind of mistake. Or a forgery. Call the bank. I said calmly. Check it out. All original documents are kept with my lawyer. Emily suddenly shouted, addressing the crowd. Do you see? Do you see what he's like? All this time pretending to help us. But he's secretly been the master, keeping us dependent. Emily, I said tiredly. I've never hidden the fact that the house is mine. You knew that yourself when you moved here. I just tried not to emphasize it so as not to embarrass you and Rick. False. She screamed. It's all lies. The room exploded with voices. Everyone was talking at the same time, interrupting each other. Rick was floundering between anger and panic, and Martha wailing loudly that she always felt something was wrong with that boy. Rick's mother started calling someone, loudly demanding that they check these documents immediately. I sat watching this chaos with a kind of detached calm. It was as if I were watching a movie about strangers. Zoe walked over to her mother, her face pale. Mom, is it true? Uncle Jason owns our house? Emily didn't answer, continuing to go through the papers with shaking hands. Lucas, always the more practical one, turned to me. What does that mean, Uncle Jay? Are you, evict us? That question silenced everyone. All eyes turned to me. I slowly stood up. You know, I came here tonight, hoping for a casual family dinner. I didn't realize you were planning this performance. And I wasn't planning on showing these documents. Did you pay all the bills? Zoe asked in a quiet voice. All this time? I nodded. 7 years. Since my grandparents died. But why didn't you ever tell us? There was genuine confusion in her eyes. Because your parents asked me to. They didn't want you to know I was helping. Pride, you know? Emily jumped up, knocking over a chair. Don't listen to him. He's distorting everything. He did it to control us. Emily. I looked at my sister, really looked, probably for the first time in years. I never wanted to control anyone. I wanted to help. Because you're my family. At least that's what I thought. Then why did you bring those documents today? Rick asked, his face contorted with rage. You've been planning this all along. You wanted to humiliate us in front of everyone. I shook my head. I took the papers because I felt something wasn't right. Intuition, I guess. And I turned out to be right. So are you going to kick us out or not? Lucas insisted, and I could see the fear in his eyes. That fear triggered something in me. This boy, my nephew, my sister's son, my parents' grandson, was afraid of me. What would I do to him? Throw him out on the street? Put a roof over his head? What happened to our family? No, Lucas, I replied quietly. I'm not going to kick anyone out. At least not today. See? Emily shouted. He's threatening us. Not today, so tomorrow? In a week? Why do you hate me so much, Emily? I asked, and the question came out louder than I intended. What did I ever do to you? She laughed, but it was an unpleasant, shrill laugh. What did you do? You were always Mommy's favorite. Always such a perfect Jason. Smart Jason. Successful Jason. And what am I? A loser who dropped out of college and got knocked up by the first guy she met. Hey! Rick exclaimed indignantly, but Emily paid him no attention. And then you show up, all magnanimous. Move into our parents' house, Emily. I'll take care of you, Emily. Do you have any idea how humiliating that is? Living on your little brother's allowance? I never thought of it as a handout. I said. I thought I was helping my sister. My family. You made us feel like nobodies. She jabbed a finger in my direction. Especially when we found out the truth. I froze. When did you find out? Emily suddenly faltered, as if she'd said something she hadn't meant to say. Mike from the electric company. Rick said slowly. He lives in the neighborhood. 2 years ago at a barbecue, he got drunk and started thanking me for paying my bills on time, not like the other customers. Only I never paid him a dime. He showed me on his clipboard. Emily continued. All the bills from the last 5 years. Paid by you? I tried to make sense of it. 2 years? You knew for 2 years and you didn't say anything? What were we supposed to say? Thanks for sneaking around paying our bills, making us look like total losers? But then, I tried to understand the logic. Why this show today? Why exclude me from the family? Aunt Martha snorted in surprise. Because the house is for sale, silly boy. I turned to her. What? The neighborhood is gentrifying. She explained. Houses here are now worth 3 times what they were when your parents bought it. Your sister could get a fortune for it. But she can't sell a house she doesn't own, can she? I looked at Emily. She was avoiding my gaze. You plan to sell our parents' house? Without my knowledge? We thought you signed it over to me. Emily shouted. All these years, you said it was our family home. We thought you signed it over to me. I never said that. I replied. I said you could live here. For free. But I never transferred ownership to you. So what do we do now? Rick's father intervened. They already have a buyer. They signed a preliminary contract. I felt the blood drain from my face. You signed a contract to sell a house you don't own? Rick started thrashing around the room. Frank is going to kill me. He gave me an advance. We've already spent some of the money. Who's Frank? I asked, even though I already had a guess. My boss. He owns a car dealership. He wants to buy this house for his daughter. That's it. Rick's new job. A family vote to get rid of me. It's all falling into place. And when was the deal supposed to take place? I asked, feeling strangely numb. In 2 weeks. Emily whispered. I looked around the room. On all those faces that should have been family, I saw the same expression, not shame for the deception, not remorse for trying to steal my property, but fear and rage that their plan had been discovered. That's why you're all here. I finally realized. Not for a family dinner. You were going to officially remove me from the family so that when I found out the house was sold, you'd have an excuse for why I wasn't notified. Jason. Aunt Martha stepped forward. You have to understand. Emily and the kids need that money. For a new beginning. A new beginning, I echoed. On me. No one answered. A heavy silence hung in the room. May I speak to my sister alone? I asked, breaking the silence. No one moved. I had to repeat. Please, everyone out. I need to talk to Emily. You have no right to point in my house, Rick began, but immediately faltered as he realized his mistake. Actually, I have, I replied tiredly. But that's not the point right now. Give us 10 minutes. People were reluctant to leave the dining room, casting hostile glances at me. Lucas was the last to leave, lingering in the doorway. Uncle Jason. I didn't know, he said quietly. Really? I nodded. I know Lucas. When the door closed behind him, Emily and I were alone. She sat with her head down, her makeup smeared with tears. Why, Emily? I asked. For 7 years I've helped you. Paid your bills, repaired your house, and even anonymously sponsored your kids' school trips. What have I done to deserve such hatred? She raised her head. There was not only anger in her eyes, but something else. Shame? Fear? You didn't do anything, she finally said. That's the problem, Jason. You're perfect. You always have been. You graduated from college, you have a successful business, and you always make the right choices. And me? I've always been a loser. Why can't you be like your brother, Emily? Mom asked all the time. Mom never said that. Not you. Me. Her voice trailed off. When you weren't around. You were her pride. And I was a disappointment. I sighed. Emily, even if that's true, it doesn't excuse what you did. You were going to sell a house that doesn't belong to you. We were desperate. She lowered her voice. Lucas has college applications next year. Zoe's having trouble with her friends at school, she needs a fresh start. And Rick. Frank threatened to fire him if the deal didn't go through. And that's why you decided to have a family vote? To exclude me from the family? I felt the anger rising in me again. Who are these people you invited anyway? Half of them I don't even know. Neighbors. Rick's friends. We needed witnesses. In case you decided to contest the sale. I shook my head, amazed at the scope of their plan. And the children? They were in on it too? Emily bit her lip. They only knew part of it. We told them that you were a bad influence on the family. That you always looked down on us. Oh my God, Emily. I covered my face with my hands. You turned my nephews against me because of money? Not because of the money, she objected. Because of the future. Our parents left everything to you. Everything. And what did I get? Nothing. Because they knew I'd take care of you. I said quietly. And I did take care, Emily. For 7 years. We sat in silence. It was starting to get dark outside the window. Thanksgiving, which was supposed to bring the family together, had finally destroyed ours. What now? Emily finally asked. You're going to evict us? I looked at her, my older sister, the one I had once idolized. Now she looked small, scared, and pathetic. No, I decided. I won't evict you. At least not right away. The kids need to finish school. But I'm not going to pay any more bills. And I'm not going to sell the house either. But Frank. It's not my problem, Emily. You and Rick tricked him, not me. She nodded without raising her eyes. I understand. I stood up. I'm leaving. Tell everyone they can go back to their interrupted holiday. Jason. Emily finally looked at me. Sorry. I didn't know if the apology was sincere, but I wasn't sure I cared anymore. Goodbye, Emily. I went out the back door, avoiding the rest of the guests. As I approached the car, I heard footsteps behind me. It was Lucas. Uncle Jason. He caught up to me, out of breath. Wait. I stopped. What, Lucas? I was going to say. Shit, I don't know what to say. He looked lost, just like a kid, even though he was already 18. They told us different things about you. That you despise us. That you thought Daddy was a loser. That you were always laughing at us behind our backs. And you believed it? He shrugged. I don't know. I guess. Over time, it's gotten easier to just be mad at you than to sort out whether it's true or not. I nodded. I understand. Those school field trips you were talking about, and the tickets to the baseball finals last year. Was that you too? Yes. He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I'd seen 1,000 times from my father. Shit. I don't know what to do. Don't do anything, Lucas. This isn't your fault. It's a conflict between me and your parents. But are you really going to evict us? I shook my head. No. At least not until you graduate. But I won't be paying for everything anymore. Your parents will have to take responsibility. He nodded. I see. Uncle Jason. About what I said earlier, about you being a loser and all. Forget it. No, listen. He looked me straight in the eye. I was a jerk. And I'm sorry. I felt something tighten in my chest. There was more honesty in that boy than in all the adults in that house put together. Thank you, Lucas. That means a lot to me. Are we still family? He asked uncertainly. I didn't know what to say. Did I still have a family? Or had I lost it over Thanksgiving dinner tonight? We'll see, I finally said. Go back before they start looking for you. He nodded and turned away, but then suddenly hugged me quickly and awkwardly, the way teenagers do. And then he ran back toward the house. I got in my car and slowly drove out into the street. The house I grew up in was getting smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror. Evening lights glowed in the windows where my mother had once cooked dinner and my father had helped us with our homework. Now that the house was full of people who hated me, who had voted to remove me from the family, and yet, I couldn't bring myself to hate them back. Not even Emily. Maybe especially Emily. Because I realized now that she was always jealous of me. Always feeling inferior. And it had been eating her up inside for years. I was driving through the night streets of Portland, with no clear direction. Some Christmas tune was playing on the radio. It was too early, but the holiday season in America always starts right after Thanksgiving. The only question swirling around in my head was, what now? It had been 6 months since that Thanksgiving. 6 months had passed, during which a lot had changed. I came home that night and stayed up until morning, going over old family photos and trying to figure out where everything had gone wrong. Could Emily and I have been a real family again? Or was that bridge burned forever? I called my lawyer in the morning and explained the situation. He was shocked, but quickly got to the point. We drew up a legal notice for Emily and Rick. They could stay in the house until the end of the school year, as long as they paid their own utilities. After that, they would either have to buy the house at market price or move out. I expected an angry call from Emily, but it didn't come. Instead, 3 days after Thanksgiving, I got a call from Frank, the same boss of Rick's, who was going to buy the house. Mr. Taylor, he began with a businesslike tone. I understand that there has been some misunderstanding regarding the sale of the Maple Street property. Misunderstanding is putting it mildly, I replied. My sister and her husband tried to sell you a house they don't own. Yes, it's an unfortunate situation, he faltered. Look, I'm a businessman. And I see an opportunity here for a mutually beneficial solution. I really need the house. My daughter's moving into the neighborhood, and the school there is one of the best in the city. What do you suggest? I'm willing to buy the house directly from you. At market value. That will save everyone a lot of embarrassment, your sister from embarrassment, and potential trouble with the law, and me from having to find a new home for my daughter. I wondered. The idea of selling the house and closing this chapter of my life seemed tempting. But something was stopping me. What about my sister and her family? Where will they go? Frank was silent for a moment. Mr. Taylor, I appreciate your concern. But after what they tried to do, I don't think that should be your problem. He was right, of course. And yet, let's do it this way, I suggested. I'll sell you the house, but on the condition that you delay your daughter's move until the end of the school year. That will give my sister time to find a new place to live. After some negotiations, we came to an agreement. I sold the house, and Frank agreed that Emily and her family could stay there until June, paying him a token rent. I didn't tell Emily about the deal. Frank did, now as the new owner of the house. I don't know what he told her, but a week after I signed the papers, I got a message from her. Thanks for the time until June. I know you didn't have to do that. That was it. No apologies for trying to steal, for years of manipulation, for turning the kids against me. But at least some kind of confession. I didn't answer. I didn't know what to say. Life went on. I plunged into work, expanded my company, and hired 2 new employees. I bought a new motorcycle, the Harley-Davidson I'd always wanted. I started dating Carol, a marketer from the office next door, whom I had liked for a long time. I tried not to think about my family. But they still came into my mind at random moments, when I saw a girl who looked like Zoe in a cafe or heard a laugh that reminded me of my father. In April, as the blossoming trees carpeted the streets of Portland in a carpet of pink, I got a call from Lucas. Uncle Jason. His voice sounded unsure. Can we meet? I need to talk to you. We met at a coffee shop near his school. Lucas had grown over the months, broader in the shoulders. Or maybe it was just that I hadn't seen him in a while. I got into the University of Oregon, he said, nervously twirling the cup in his hands. Engineering department. Congratulations, Lucas. That's great news. Yeah, only, the problem is money. He lowered his eyes. Mom and Dad can't help. They're barely making ends meet after. You know. I knew where he was going with this, but I waited for him to tell me himself. I'm not asking you to pay for me. He added quickly. I found a job for the summer, I'll save up. And there are scholarships, but they don't cover everything. I was just wondering, maybe you could give me some advice? How to find extra funding or something. I looked at this young man, my nephew, my parents' heir, part of my family no matter what, and saw myself at his age. Just as stubborn, just as proud. Lucas, I began. I sold your grandparents' house. He nodded. I know, Mom said. Some of the money I put into new projects. I continued. But the other part I've set aside for an educational trust. For you and Zoe. His eyes widened. What? After everything that's happened? I shrugged. You're not to blame for your parents' decisions. And I'm sure your grandparents would want you to get a good education. But why? Because we're family, Lucas. I replied simply. Even if some people have tried to change that. He was silent for a long time, staring into his cup. When he looked up, his eyes were moist. Thank you, Uncle Jason. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just study hard. We talked for almost 2 hours. Lucas told me that Rick had left them a month after that unfortunate Thanksgiving, unable to stand the shame and pressure from his family. Emily was working 2 jobs, trying to stay afloat. They found a small apartment on the east side of town, where they planned to move in June. How's Zoe? I asked. She's having a hard time. Lucas admitted. She blames her parents for everything. Especially her mom. They fight all the time. Tell her I miss her drawings, I said. And that the educational trust is open to her, too, when she's ready. Saying goodbye, Lucas hugged me tightly, no longer that awkward teenage exchange, but a real hug. You're better than we all deserve, Uncle Jason, he said quietly. Maybe. Maybe not. I was just doing what I thought was right. A week after that meeting, on a Sunday morning, there was a knock on my apartment door. I opened it and saw Emily. She looked older than I remembered, and much more tired. Hi, Jason, she said. Can I come in? I stepped back silently, letting her into the apartment. She looked around, noticed the pictures of our parents on the wall, and looked away. Lucas told me about the trust. She began without preamble. Why did you do that? Not for you, if that's what you mean. I answered honestly. She nodded. I know. And I'm not apologizing for myself. But thank you for not letting my mistakes ruin my children's future. We stood in awkward silence. So much unspoken between us, years of resentment, lies, misunderstandings. I'm sorry, Jason, she finally said. Not for Thanksgiving. Well, for him too, but more. For everything. For being a terrible sister. For not appreciating what you did for us. For letting envy and pride destroy our family. I didn't know whether to believe her or not. She had deceived me too many times. What do you want, Emily? She shook her head. Nothing. Really, it's nothing. I just wanted to say that. And that I understand if you never forgive me. I looked at her sister, with whom we had once shared childhood secrets, built pillow forts, and fought over the last scoop of ice cream. Could a bond like that really disappear? I don't know, Emily, I said honestly. I don't know if we can ever be a real family again. Too much has happened. She nodded, lowering her eyes. I understand. But I'd like to stay in Lucas and Zoe's lives, if that's okay with you. They don't deserve to lose another family member. Of course, she said quickly. They'd like that. Especially Zoe, though she'll never admit it. We fell silent again. Then Emily headed for the door. I'm going to go now. Thanks for listening. I nodded, not moving from my seat. She opened the door, but then stopped. You know, Mom was right, she said quietly. You really were the only one who accomplished anything. But not in the way I thought you would. Not with money or a career. But by never stopping being a good person, even when everyone around you gave you reasons not to be. And with those words, she left. I stood at the closed door for a long time, replaying her words in my head. Was it genuine remorse? Or just another manipulation? I didn't know. And I probably never would know for sure. But maybe that's what family is all about, this constant struggle between love and resentment, between forgiveness and remembering past hurts. Maybe real family is not the ones who never hurt you, but the ones with whom you still want to try, again and again, despite everything. A month later, I invited Lucas and Zoe to dinner. They both came, Zoe reluctantly, with defiance in her eyes, but she came. We ate pizza, talked about college, the future, and stupid movies. And not once did we mention Thanksgiving, or home, or betrayal. As I was saying goodbye to them at the door, Zoe suddenly held out a folded piece of paper to me. I drew it. She murmured, "If you want to." At home, I unfolded the drawing. It showed our old family, my parents, me, Emily, all together in the backyard of my parents' house. We were smiling. We were happy. I hung the drawing on the wall next to my parents' pictures. I don't know what the future will bring. Whether I'll ever be able to fully forgive Emily. Whether our family will ever be whole again. But I know one thing, I'll keep trying. For me. For my parents. For Lucas and Zoe. Because, after all, isn't that what family is all about? Not in exclusionary votes, not in home ownership. It's about never stopping trying, even when it hurts. Especially then. And that is perhaps the most important lesson I took away from that Thanksgiving, that family is not defined by blood or even a shared history. It is defined by the choices we make every day. The choice to forgive, to try again, to build bridges instead of walls. I don't know if they'll vote to expel me again next Thanksgiving. But I know I'll be there, with turkey and pumpkin pie, ready to start over. Because no matter what, they're still my family. And maybe this year we will actually find something to be thankful for.